All right, this is a video in light of what happened yesterday and just looking where Toronto is with their blue line that I think they're still going to make changes to. I don't think Kyle Dubas is done. Nazem Kadri played his last game with the Toronto Maple Leafs. There was some speculation coming out of that last suspension against Boston that he was probably done as a Leaf, and that was it. And what they've done is they've changed out their blue line. Now, people point out, well, defensively, Tyson Barrie's a disaster. Not really a disaster. That's overstating it. And people want to talk about his plus minus, and I'm going to talk about that a little bit, because it's funny how people hate plus minus, and it's no good unless it's somebody you don't like, and then you can point and go, hey, look at his plus minus. All right, because that's what I see more often than not. Now, I think plus minus is a good stat, but plus minus tells you the 5-on-5 story, and 5-on-5, the Leafs are pretty darn solid. Morgan Riley on the left, Jake Muzzin on the left, Travis Dermott on the left, Ben Harper on the left. That's how it stands currently. Right-hand defenseman, Tyson Barrie, Cody Ceci, Timothy Liljegren, and Justin Hall. Now, I've got Liljegren in there just as sort of a tease that maybe he'll be ready. Maybe he ends up pushing for a spot this fall. And just to remind people, Toronto does have, with Sandin and Liljegren, decent prospects on the blue line. Now, let's just say this is the top six. Let's ignore who plays on the left and the right, because I know people are going to say, well, this guy's listed as left, he'd play on the right, blah, blah, blah. So if you're looking for who's going to be paired with who, I think you pair O'Reilly and Ceci, Barrie with Muzzin. And that's your top four. That's a pretty decent top four, to be honest. Cody Ceci, not... how do I put this? He was thrown under the bus a lot in Ottawa. I don't think he's a great defenseman, but I think he can bounce back with Toronto. And as long as he's not being counted on to, I don't know, live up to whatever he didn't in Ottawa, I think he'll be fine. Tyson Barrie's an excellent defenseman, and I want to talk about Barrie. So this past season, he played 78 games, 14 goals, 45 assists, 59 points, and he's a -3. That's what people look at. Look at his plus minus. He had 8 points in 12 playoff games, and he was a +1 in the playoffs. But we won't talk about that, right? He also had 2 power play goals this year and 25 power play points. Make no mistake, Kyle Dubas and bringing in Barrie, this is not just about bringing in a big-name defenseman and, oh, God, he's just a one-year rental. This is about trying to fix the power play problem they had down the stretch and in the playoffs. One of the reasons they didn't get out of the first round is that power play. 2017-2018, Barrie had 68 games played, 14 goals, 43 assists, 57 points. He's a -15. The year before, 74 games played, 7 goals, 31 assists, 38 points. He's a -34. Everybody's going to look at this, and they look at the year before. Colorado was terrible that year. Rantanen was a -25, Landeskog -25, Matt Duchene was a -34, and Carl Soderberg was a -26. So, I always find it weird when people look at one player and they'll go, oh, look at him. And then you look at other players on the team, and you've got to kind of look at the team numbers and say, well, wait a minute. Because when I see a guy whose plus minus is poor and his scoring numbers are high, the first thing I think is maybe he's defensively an issue, or maybe he gets his points on the power play, which don't count for plus minus. So to me, Tyson Barrie, decent pickup for the top four. Yes, the overall numbers say that you need to put him with a guy who's a shutdown. And the guy I always say is Mark Mathot. Obviously, Mathot's a free agent, but he's also not likely to be able to play very many games. Now, if you could pair him with a Mathot type, that's perfect. Does Toronto have that? We'll see. Can Jake Muzzin be paired with him and they have great chemistry? Maybe. Again, I don't think Toronto is done. But what they've done is remarkable. Zaitsev is out. They trade him. Zaitsev had to go. The fans had turned against him. I don't think that the organization had any faith left in him. And that contract was absolutely horrible, considering how many years were left in it. Although, according to Pierre Dorian, that's what he likes about Zaitsev, is how long his contract is. Gardner. Gardner leaves as a free agent. And Gardner, after the Game 7 issues he had both this year and last year, it had to happen. So, you move in Barrie, Gardner and Zaitsev are gone. Kelly Rosen had to go because I always got the feeling that Mike Babcock had no faith in him. Rosen going to Colorado. You know what? Honestly, Rosen could end up being a steal for Colorado as a number 6/number 7 defenseman. 110%. But when I see people talking about, oh, Barrie's such a defensive disaster. Yeah, he's also got 75 career goals, 307 career points in 484 games, and he's 27 years of age. Yes, I agree. It's highly likely that he's just a rental. But if I was Kyle Dubas, I might sit down with him and his agent and say, so why don't we make this not a rental situation? Toronto's going to have a hard time. They pay a lot of money to their forwards. This may be reality for them. Right now, they have $11.065 million in what I'm calling Marner space. It's not cap space. It's Marner space. Until Mitch Marner signs, they have no cap space. It's just Marner space. And after Marner gets signed, and that Aho contract, as I mentioned earlier today, may very well bring down the amount of money that Marner gets. So if I was Kyle Dubas, I might send a fruit basket to Mark Bergevin when I'm able to get Marner to sign for less money. Because we know Toronto's not going to shy away from giving cash bonuses up front. That doesn't bother them at all. They may look at that Aho contract and go, we can do that. The only problem may end up being the term. So, you know, for Marner, it's going to be interesting. And what effect it has on the blue line is going to be interesting. We've talked a lot about how Toronto needed to fix its blue line. It's trying to. And they're trying to do it while freeing up cap space, and they've done that as well. Half of Barrie's contract stayed with Colorado. So yeah, it's a rental at $2.75 million this year on the cap. It is very highly unlikely they sign Barrie and they keep him next year. But I'm guessing that if they do, people will point to his plus minus and say, see, he sucks. I would counter with, yeah, 5-on-5, there's challenges, and I would compare him to Torrey Krug. A player, and Barrie's 5'10", and Krug's 5'9", so there's a similarity there. Krug, 5-on-5, I have to hold my breath sometimes when he's out there ragging the puck. But on the point on the power play, deadly. Barrie could do the same thing for Toronto. Dubas is trying to fix things. And I've definitely did not like the way the whole Marleau thing went down. I thought, giving up a first-round draft pick again, and they've lost 2 in a row. I have no problem saying when I think the Leafs have made a move that long-term is going to hurt them. I don't think this does. I've had the feeling with Kadri, as soon as they signed Tavares, I felt like Kadri was on his way out. Because Kadri should be a second-line center, not third. Not third. While I may not like some of the things Kadri does, he is a second-line center in the National Hockey League. He can be a 30-goal scorer. Now in Colorado, he gets a chance to be that. But what Barrie brings to Toronto is something they didn't have. A right-hand defenseman who can shoot the puck. There is nobody here who can shoot the puck. I would argue there isn't anybody outside of Morgan Rielly who could run a power play. Now, they could have Rielly run the first unit power play and Barrie run the second unit power play, or vice versa. It gives Toronto more depth on their special teams, and it should help their power play out, which was a major reason why Boston knocked them out this year. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below, as always. This is one of those things that during the offseason I'll look at and I'll go, all right, I want to talk about this. I'm not going to do this for every team. I know Vancouver fans will be like, do us next. No, this is just one of those things where because of the trade Toronto made and because there's such a divide, does it help both teams? Probably. I do think that Toronto got the better player. I do think Toronto won this deal. So we'll see whether or not that's the truth. The measure of this trade is next April. The measure of this trade is when Toronto's in the playoffs, they're in the first round, and whether or not they get out. If they're out in the first round, this trade will be viewed as a loss. The other thing Toronto has to do is not blue line related. They've got to get tougher up front. They have got to get tougher up front. They need to pick up, I would say, 2 forwards who can do what Martin and Komarov used to be able to do. They need that grit and sandpaper. And I know Kyle Dubas has been not keen on it, and Babcock has wavered on whether or not he thinks that's important. But I think having that pushback is important, and being able to keep teams honest. It's not about enforcers. It's just about have some team toughness out there, just a little bit. Even Vancouver learned that and went out and got a guy like Roussel to play for them. So we'll see what happens with Tyson Barrie and the Leafs this year. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just tapping upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.